The film starts with a businessman named Johnny, who is telling his friends that he met 3 women in just 1 week. It's clear that Johnny is the type to boast about his romantic relationships in front of his friends. His friends try to advise him to get married and settle down, especially since he's getting older, almost 50 years old. However, Johnny doesn't care about their advice and tells them he's happy with his life without marriage. The next day, Johnny is at a restaurant with his friend Dario when he receives a call informing him that his mother has passed away. He gets into his car and rushes to the cemetery. There, Johnny meets his brother Dante and apologizes for being late. It's obvious that Dante is upset with Johnny because Johnny never inquired about their mother or visited her before she passed away. Moreover, their mother had always been in conflict with Johnny due to his reckless lifestyle. After the funeral, Johnny goes to his mother's house and starts recalling memories with her. He sits in a wheelchair and looks at old pictures of them together when he was a child. Suddenly, Alyssa, who lives in the apartment next door, walks in. She's surprised to see him sitting in the wheelchair and mistakenly thinks he is paralyzed. She tells him that she works at a nursing home and offers to help him anytime. Johnny is clearly impressed by Alyssa's beauty, and since he doesn't want to reveal the truth, he pretends to be paralyzed. The next day, Johnny is at his company and we learn that he works in the sports shoe industry. It's clear that Johnny is upset because the company's sales have dropped. One of the employees suggests they make sports shoes for people with disabilities and launch an advertising campaign featuring athletes with disabilities who have won medals in various games. Johnny criticizes the idea, calling the employee a failure and accusing her of not understanding marketing. He explains that people with disabilities usually wear only one shoe their entire life and don't change it because they don't move. He decides to fire the employee in front of all the staff. After that, Johnny goes to his mother's house again, this time wearing old clothes to make it seem like he is poorer, in order to make Alyssa pity him even more. He knocks on Alyssa's door, and when she opens it, he invites her for coffee at his mother's apartment. Alyssa agrees, and they sit together and talk. Alyssa feels sympathy for him, thinking he is poor because of his worn clothes. Before leaving, Johnny reveals to her that he is actually rich, owns a big company with branches around the world, and has a luxurious villa and many other assets. Alyssa's view of Johnny changes, and her attitude towards him becomes more friendly, even inviting him to lunch at her place. Johnny agrees, happy that Alyssa is now impressed by him. The next day, Johnny visits Alyssa's home, meets her family, and notices a beautiful young woman in a wheelchair outside the house. He learns that this is Alyssa's sister, Kiara. Johnny is shocked when he finds out that Kiara is indeed paralyzed and uses a wheelchair. He realizes that Alyssa invited him to lunch to introduce him to her sister, Kiara. After the lunch, Johnny talks to Kiara alone and learns that she plays tennis and is part of a musical band, playing the violin. Johnny tells Kiara that he is very rich and has many big companies, but he has no hobbies. The next day, Johnny meets with his friends and tells them about his experience. He says that he can't believe he is dealing with a disabled person, but acknowledges that this is a new experience for him and he plans to continue with it. Johnny asks his friends about the differences between disabled people and others so that he can understand Kiara better and interact with her more appropriately. However, one of his friends disapproves of the situation and advises Johnny to stay away from Kiara to avoid breaking her heart. As usual, Johnny ignores his friend's advice. At the same time, Alyssa visits Johnny at his mother's house to return the jacket he left behind. There, she meets Dante, Johnny's brother, and learns from him that Johnny is not home. Dante takes advantage of the situation when he hears Alyssa speak highly of Johnny, saying that he is a good person and that she wants to help him because he's paralyzed and needs someone by his side. Dante continues to deceive her, and Johnny later meets with him at their mother's grave. There, Dante urges Johnny to be honest with Alyssa about the truth, but Johnny ignores his brother's words and walks away. Afterward, Johnny goes home and sends Kiara a message, asking if they can go out together on Saturday. The next day, they meet, but this time Johnny is not in the wheelchair. He hides the truth by sitting at the desk so Kiara won't realize. Kiara tells him that she came without an appointment and saw his message, but unfortunately, she can't go out on Saturday because she has an important tennis match. On the day of the match, Kiara is very happy when she sees Johnny in the audience, cheering for her. After the match, Kiara introduces Johnny to her friends, all of whom are people with disabilities. A few days later, Kiara is performing with her musical band at a concert in another city. After the concert, Kiara is excited to find Johnny waiting for her outside the theater. He explains that he found out about the concert date and location online and kept it a secret because he wanted to surprise her. He also tells her how much he enjoyed her performance. Kiara is delighted and grateful. Later, Johnny invites her to dinner, and while they are in the restaurant, he almost confesses the truth to Kiara. However, he accidentally presses a button on the wheelchair, causing a huge commotion in the restaurant. Johnny is unable to continue his conversation with Kiara. Afterward, they walk together down the street until they reach the hotel where Kiara is staying. The next day, Kiara is with her sister Alyssa, and she tells Alyssa that she's happy in her relationship with Johnny. She says that she loves him and is happy that he treats her well, making her feel like a normal person. The next day, Johnny invites Kiara to dinner at his house, and they spend a pleasant evening together. While they are having dinner, Kiara asks Johnny about the cause of his disability. He tells her that it was a similar accident to one that happened to a famous actor. Kiara is surprised and clarifies that the actor's injury was in his neck, not his legs. Johnny awkwardly tries to explain that he meant he had a similar serious accident to the actor's. Kiara then opens up, saying that she had an accident a long time ago, and since then, she hasn't been able to move like normal people. The following day, Johnny is at his company and asks his secretary to contact the employee he fired some time ago and tell her that he wants her to return to the company. It appears that Johnny is now convinced by the employee's idea about the campaign for shoes for people with disabilities. He wants her to return to the company to oversee the advertising campaign herself. Afterward, Johnny visits Kiara at her house but finds her practicing music. While she's busy, Johnny stands up to confront her and confess the truth. However, he lacks the courage to tell Kiara and quickly sits back in the wheelchair before she can turn around and see him. After Kiara finishes her practice, she sits with Johnny and tells him about a person she once loved. She was happy with him, but after her accident, that person distanced himself and ended their relationship. Kiara says she was deeply affected by this and that the one thing she hates most in life is lying. At the same time, Dante meets with Alyssa, Kiara's sister, and tells her that Johnny is lying to them. He explains that Johnny is not paralyzed and can walk like any other person. Alyssa gets upset and calls Johnny, demanding to meet him. Once they meet, she slaps him and says that she knows the truth. She gives him 2 days to tell Kiara the truth himself, or she will tell Kiara herself. Alyssa leaves, and Johnny is left feeling conflicted. Later that evening, Johnny meets his father at a bar and shares the situation with him, asking for advice. His father suggests that he should tell Kiara the truth and stop lying to her. Johnny, however, is afraid that Kiara will hate him and leave. While they are talking, an announcement is made about a pilgrimage trip to a historic church in France, one of the oldest sacred places in Europe. Johnny gets an idea. He decides to take Kiara on the trip and pretend that his disability was cured by the holiness of the place. This way, Kiara won't be upset, and their relationship will continue. At the same time, Alyssa is with Kiara, and suddenly, Johnny calls Kiara to invite her on the trip. She happily agrees, and Alyssa is visibly upset that Kiara will be going with him. She tries to stop Kiara, but Kiara defends her decision, saying she feels that Johnny truly loves her, even with her disability. Despite not knowing what will happen in their relationship, Kiara is happy with him, even if he's lying to her. The next day, Johnny and Kiara travel to France. When they arrive at the church, the priest there asks to speak to Johnny alone. The priest tells him that he knows Johnny can walk, and he noticed the special shoes he's wearing. Johnny admits the truth to the priest and tells him what he was planning to do, but the priest advises against it. He explains that if Johnny pretends a miracle has happened, people will believe in miracles and expect to be healed as well. Johnny leaves the priest, and outside, he sees Kiara moving toward the road in her wheelchair. Suddenly, a truck comes speeding toward her, and Johnny rushes to save her, just in time to pull her out of harm's way. Although Kiara now knows the truth, that Johnny can walk, she is overwhelmed by the shock and the realization. She finds it difficult to cope with this, so she distances herself from him and boards a bus alone. Johnny returns home, heartbroken, and they don't meet again. Time passes, and Johnny realizes that he can't forget Kiara. He has changed and become a better person. He visits his mother's grave to apologize for not caring about her before she died. Afterward, he decides to go to Kiara's house to apologize and ask for her forgiveness. When he arrives, he meets Kiara's grandmother, who tells him that Kiara has decided to travel to another city to get away from the sadness she's feeling. Johnny learns that Kiara left just recently and that he might still be able to catch her. He rushes to his car and follows the bus Kiara is on. He manages to catch up with it and blocks the road, then boards the bus and asks Kiara to forgive him. Kiara refuses to talk to him and asks the driver to continue driving. Johnny gets off the bus, feeling defeated, and returns to his car. Time passes and Johnny is seen running again, using the exercise to release his pent-up sadness. He runs so fast that he becomes exhausted and collapses on the ground to rest. Suddenly, Kiara appears in front of him and tells him that she has forgiven him for what he did. Johnny is overjoyed, and he throws a big celebration at his house, inviting all his friends and acquaintances. During the party, he asks Kiara to marry him, and she agrees. They dance together, and they are both filled with happiness as the film ends.